Today, the AFC North, I have a feeling who the first overall pick will be. The question is who gets to exercise the first overall pick. Chris, you get to if you answer the trivia question correctly, and here it is. The Bengals obviously have the number one overall pick this year. Who was the last number one overall pick in the draft to win a Super Bowl?
Ooh, that's a good one there. The last number one overall pick to win a Super Bowl. Okay, hold on. I'm early. I want to say Peyton Manning, but I'm just waiting a second here. I'm gonna go with Peyton Manning.
Wah, wah, wah. This is a
Wait,
trick
who am I?
question. You're missing
Who am
Eric
I
Fisher.
missing? Oh,
Eric Fisher, number one overall pick in 2013 and won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs just a couple of months ago. But you're thinking quarterback because it's always a quarterback who's taken first overall, except when it isn't a quarterback taken first overall.
I think I could have got to Eric Fisher, but of course on TV, the pressure of the moment, I couldn't hash it out quite. I thought of this year real quick, and I went, oh man, there's no number one, and just went right to Peyton Manning. Damn it.
The first overall pick in today's draft, a guy who would be the first overall pick if they redid the 2018 draft, all due respect to Baker Mayfield, and that's Lamar Jackson, the last pick in round one, the MVP of the league in 2019, and a guy with a bright future, an unlimited ceiling, and he just keeps getting better and better. He's unstoppable. That playoff loss to the Titans, I'm willing to call it an aberration because I think once we get back to football, we're going to see Lamar Jackson right back where he was. And I don't care how much time defensive coordinators have to figure out how to stop him. You can't stop him. You can draw it up, but you can't stop the guy. He is just physically superior to anybody they put on the field to try to stop him. So easy one for me. Lamar Jackson, best player by far in the AFC North.
Yeah, well, he's special. You're right. I mean, he's the MVP of football, and we really haven't seen anything like him or an offense built around a guy like him ever, which led to a really awesome special year. And it was, must-watch TV with Lamar Jackson. So I can't be mad at you there. All right. My second pick, or my first pick, I'm staying on the Baltimore Ravens here, and I'm going with Marlon Humphrey, their corner. Marlon Humphrey, for my money, is in the conversation for the best corner in football. I think he's right there with Stephon Gilmore, Jalen Ramsey. He is one of those guys. He is a shutdown island type corner. I don't know if he's become a household name quite yet. There's other stars on that Baltimore Ravens football team, but the Ravens are a team that puts tremendous pressure on their corners. And Humphrey covered the best receivers in football week in, week out, just like a Stephon Gilmore does, and was always as good as it gets. So for me, that would be the second best player in the whole division would be Marlon Humphrey. I think he is phenomenal, kind of flying under the radar as far as being a good big household name quite yet.
Yeah, you're right. And that Ravens defense, very, very good. One of the reasons why the Ravens were as good as they were. Yes, the offense is special and it's exciting and it's dynamic, but the defense still holding its own even after plenty of guys left in free agency in 2019. All right, for me, look, this guy may not have a lot left in the tank, but he's still one of the best players in all of football. He doesn't get the credit he deserves at this stage of his career because we haven't seen much of him lately. But Ben Roethlisberger, to me, is one of the best players in the AFC North, one of the best players in the AFC, one of the best players in the NFL. I'm going to assume that elbow will be healed, and I'm going to assume he's going to be back and right where he was. My one concern with Ben Roethlisberger is that what happened last year with the elbow is just the first body part that is breaking down as he gets closer and closer to 40, because I don't see him thriving beyond his 40th birthday the way Tom Brady and Drew Brees have. But for now, still, we're looking only at that division. It's a quarterback-driven league. Ben Roethlisberger, still a special quarterback, still great things he can do with the football. And if he's healthy this year, the Steelers are going to be a factor in that division and in that conference.
Yeah, and I would expect him to be healthy. I mean, I really would. I mean, this injury is pretty commonplace in sports this day and age. And this is a guy that's a very gifted natural thrower of the football, to where I don't think it's going to take much to get him back, hitting on all cylinders that way. But I'm with you, Mike. I mean, Big Ben's special. I think in the lures of all-time football, he's a little more underrated than people, give him credit for. I think he's borderline, he's top 10, borderline top 10 quarterback for me in the history of the sport with what he did. And he was special, and a lot of years carried that team with no offensive line and did all that. So I'm not mad at you for the Big Ben pick by any stretch of the imagination. Ooh, there's a lot of good players in the AFC North. There really is. I mean, this is where I don't know where to go, but you know what? I mean, you said earlier in the show, premium is about guys who throw the football and then guys who can chase after the guys who throw the football. And the best one in the AFC North at that is Myles Garrett. And he will be my second pick. I mean, Myles Garrett, I think was, very close to on his way to being in that conversation of leading the league in sacks last year, before his suspension. And listen, I don't like the way he necessarily handled that whole situation and all of that, but the play on the field's undeniable. I mean, he's one of the freakier athletes in all of the sport. He's unbelievable coming around the edges of pass rusher. He has great power. He's a game changer. He's a guy that you got to think about, do I really want to leave my offensive tackle one-on-one with this guy, for 40 drop back passes during a football game? But you could see right there, I mean, those are special movements. And yes, I think he was my pick for NFL Defensive MVP last year before the season. But I think he is, yes, up there with the Khalil Macks and Von Millers as the best pass rushers, Chandler Jones, and all of football.
Yeah, absolutely. And, there was widespread talk about him potentially being the Defensive Player of the Year last year. And it didn't get started the way that it could have. Remember, he had those penalties early on, and he was starting to develop that reputation that we kind of forgot he was starting to develop that reputation as kind of a rough and tumble guy once he went ultimate rough and tumble and ripped off Mason Rudolph's helmet and hit him over the head with it. But I anticipate that we won't be seeing that kind of behavior from Myles Garrett in the future. New coaching staff again. But finally, this guy's going to reach his ceiling, and when he does, it's going to be spectacular. Another guy who's getting close to his ceiling, although who knows, given his DNA, given the fact that his brother JJ is a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. TJ Watt was a contender for Defensive Player of the Year last year with his 14.5 sacks. He's a guy in that classic Steeler pass rusher mold, and he's becoming as important to that defense as Ben Roethlisberger is to the offense. And they get everybody together this year, and they keep everybody healthy, and the Steelers are a team that is going to cause trouble for the teams that we assume are the best teams in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, he's phenomenal. He really is. I mean, just like we talked about with Myles Garrett, yeah, he's maybe not quite as athletically gifted, but this is still a guy that's very gifted in a lot of ways. He is, and he can do it all. Drop back in coverage, plays the run awesome pass rusher. He's a great pick by you. There's some players on that Steelers front seven that probably all could have made this. This is a draft. It's just funny. I feel like the AFC North has a little more star power maybe than the other two divisions we did so far compared to the AFC East and NFC East. But, here my third pick, man, there's a lot of good to pick from, but I'm going to pick my boy. You know who my boy is, Blue? I'm going with Odell Beckham Jr. Yes, I mean, another guy.
Stunned. I'm stunned he lasted that long on your board. He's going to be upset. He's going to be upset that he was third.
Hopefully he'll let me still come there in training camp this year and do more Chris Simms unbuttoned interviews with him. But regardless,
you have sold out completely. You've only been in this business for a few years, and you have already abandoned your principles. You're watching what you say, all in the sake of access. I am ashamed of you.
I'm picking him third. I mean, I'm being, but either way, Odell Beckham Jr., even though not 100% last year, we know he had the core injury, and even the year before not. This is still, for my money, this is one of the most physically gifted, great receivers I've ever seen in my life. And even at not 100% last year, and the stats not being where they were, Odell Beckham Jr. was still a game changer for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, teams still made him priority number one. If it was third down, they were going to double Odell Beckham Jr., whatever it may be. And I would think this year, with the second year in that, in the organization, feeling more comfortable, being totally 100% healthy, we're going to see Odell Beckham Jr. explode this year. I'm predicting that right now. I'm predicting Odell Beckham Jr. to be the best receiver in football once again and reclaim his title that he had, 2 years ago.
Write it down. I disagree.
Write it down.
We'll see. Write it down. I don't think he's going to be the best receiver in football this year. He'll look. They've got to get over the idea that we've got to force him the football. Hopefully, under Kevin Stefanski, the approach is going to be the guy who's open gets the football, period. And they got to work with OBJ to get him. And look, Stefanski had Stephon Diggs in Minnesota, and he did, for the most part, a good job of keeping Stephon Diggs under wraps when Diggs wanted the ball more than he was getting it. But, it was every week last year. What do we got to do to get the ball to Odell Beckham Jr.? And it's like, who cares? Let's get the ball to the open man. Let's get the offense moving. Let's score points. Let's win games. That's all that matters, period. All right, some names that got left off.
Let's talk.
Matthew Judon, franchise tagged by the Ravens. He doesn't make it into the draft. Nick Chubb, who was on track to being the leading rusher in the NFL last year, he doesn't make it. Joe Mixon, a guy who's got the potential to be one of the best running backs in the NFL, he doesn't make it. Big Truss, I really wanted to find a spot for my guy Mark Ingram, but how can you do it? There are too many great players in the AFC North.
AJ Green, Bud Dupree, Cam Hayward, Marcus Peters at corner for the Ravens. We didn't get to Calais Campbell, who's now in the might have been. I know. I mean, that's what's really interesting about, Fitzpatrick, the safety that the Steelers got last year. I mean, that's what it means. The AFC North is, you start to look at it and go, man, there is really talent. I didn't draft Geno Atkins. He just made the all-decade team. I mean, that's, to me, that hurt my heart. This is a draft where we could have had a legit awesome 6 rounds. There's that many talented players in the AFC North right now.
Yeah, I mean, it really underscores, and I like that we're doing this. We get the idea of where the talent is, and so far, through the AFC East, the NFC East, and the AFC North, the talent is stocked in the AFC North.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.